Welcome back, everyone. We have why Roman cities were abandoned in the Middle Ages. I mean, nobody wanted to live. Middle Ages, by the way, is probably after the Roman Empire fell, until heck, what, like 13, 14, 1500, something like that. Yeah, let's find out. Toldinstone. Let's go.
London,
Grows out in the middle of the woods.
Paris, Milan, and hundreds of other cities founded by the Romans are still thriving today. But hundreds more, in every part of the former classical world, have been abandoned. I'm standing in the ruins of Termessus in what is now southern Turkey. This,
Okay, you would not. I don't know. When I hear southern Turkey, my biases say mountains and sand and dirt. I'm so glad that this is a different view of that, just because I would never have guessed.
was a monumental street, lined on both sides by shops with statue bases carrying bronze images of local benefactors. But for 15 centuries, this street has been silent, save for the rumbling of earthquakes and the scratching of scavengers. Today's video will try to explain how cities like Termessus could flourish for centuries and then, almost without warning, disappear.
Mm.
The Roman Empire was a confederation of cities. Rome itself had begun as a city-state, which annexed hundreds of others as it expanded across the Mediterranean basin. Where cities did not yet exist, the Romans established them until a continuous network of 2,000 extended from Britain to Syria.
2000.
Each Roman city was responsible for administering a fixed territory. Its leading citizens collected taxes on Rome's behalf and kept order in the countryside. In return, they were offered a share in the prosperity of the Pax Romana, with its unprecedented opportunities for political advancement. To consolidate and commemorate their position, civic elites poured vast sums into public building. Forums and fountains, aqueducts and baths and gymnasiums, amphitheaters and avenues lined with statues. All the monuments, in short, that still define our image of the Roman city. The Golden Age ended amid the invasions and economic crises of the 3rd century.
And this is a lot of history we got to definitely take care of in the future. When it comes to understanding and reacting, I think my own journey into Rome history is like around Augustus, and that's it. That's it.
Along the frontiers, barbarian incursions damaged or destroyed hundreds of cities. Even places spared by the marauders often withdrew within walls cobbled together from disassembled monuments. Although stability returned in the 4th century, long-term social changes slowed the process of recovery. The later Roman emperors had increasing difficulty convincing local notables to manage their cities. The wealthiest magnates often left for well-paid positions in the imperial administration. Those who remained tended to become increasingly impoverished, less able and less willing to govern.
So it just fractured over time.
Cities with important roles in the government of the empire thrived as long as the empire did. In Gaul, Arles and Trier grew larger than ever before in late antiquity. But in most parts of the northwestern provinces, where the urban tradition had shallow roots, cities contracted. Londinium, for example, began to lose inhabitants in the late 2nd century and seems to have been completely abandoned after the Roman evacuation of Britain. We'll explore some of the factors that affected the survival. Context news, which factored 80 news left-wing, much of toldinstone, 40% near the Mediterranean, were likelier to survive the collapse of the Western Roman Empire.
Because it's, you have a port usually. You have a window into other city-states. You have trade, migrants, great for fishing, and so forth.
Than those on the frontiers. Besides being closer to still vital trade routes, they had a better chance of being peacefully incorporated into one of the barbarian kingdoms that replaced the empire.
Yeah, because it's an important, like, why would someone want to bulldoze, you know, a very important port city that they could just claim and boom, it's a huge boost to their economy immediately. Of
In later centuries, however, cities on the Mediterranean coast became subject to pirate attack.
course.
Even St. Peter's Basilica was looted by Saracen raiders in the 9th century.
Mm.
To escape the danger, the inhabitants of some coastal settlements moved en masse to the nearest defensible hill. Cities in parts of the Eastern Roman Empire remained healthy until the early 7th century, when the Avars and Slavs overran the Balkans and the Persians and Arabs took the Near East. The cities of Syria and Palestine, close to the center of the newly established Umayyad Caliphate, survived and even flourished after the Arab conquests.
Yeah, because they wanted to, they didn't just want to, like I said, bulldoze these very important sites and like Jerusalem, Damascus, Antioch. They were just, places that could be reestablished and reinvigorated.
Eventually, however, almost every region was subjected to raids and invasions. The Anatolian plateau was ravaged by armies of Arab horsemen, driving the inhabitants to abandon their cities for castles and caves. In the 11th century Maghreb, the migrating Banu Hilal tribe destroyed so many cities that regions cultivated since the Roman period reverted to pastoralism.
Dang, that's insane. I mean, I understand how that would happen, but wow.
Invaders were far from the only problems cities faced. The early imperial era had coincided with a protracted period of exceptional warmth. As the climate cooled in late antiquity, cities like Sagalassus, high in the Taurus Mountains, withered in response. Sometimes, the landscapes around cities became inhospitable. The irrigated fields of Egypt's Fayum Basin were ruined by salination. The harbors of Ephesus and Miletus silted up. Earthquakes caused much of Alexandria and Baiae to sink into the sea.
So crazy.
Over the course of classical history, Falciparum malaria, the variety most deadly to humans, gradually spread westward across the Mediterranean basin. The effects seem to have been worsened by deforestation, which filled rivers with sediment and encouraged them to form mosquito-haunted deltas.
The mosquito has done so much damage to the human population. It's unreal. But the festering, like marshes that just accumulate everywhere. It's a breeding ground.
Previously healthy places became dangerous. Malaria was largely responsible for transforming the Roman Campagna, once famous for its rich farms and sprawling villas, into the wasteland it remained until the 19th century.
The 19th century?
Even where invasions were infrequent and the landscape remained healthy, the disappearance of the Roman Empire was accompanied by profound economic changes. These were most dramatic along the former frontiers, where many cities had depended, directly or indirectly, on military spending. Cities everywhere, however, relied on dense networks of exchange. On the limestone plateau of northern Syria, dozens of large villages had emerged in late antiquity, supplying olive oil to Antioch and its neighbors. But after trade routes changed in the wake of the Arab conquest, the villages were abandoned.
Wow.
Their gaunt ruins, never again inhabited, came to be known as the Dead Cities.
So sad. Because a lot of these places have really pretty architecture and just storied history, of course.
It can be easy to forget how fragile cities are. They rely on sprawling networks of trade and transport, delicate webs of infrastructure, critical masses of people and resources. Although invasions and natural disasters played their part, most Roman cities were doomed by subtler changes, which slowly unraveled their reasons for being. The world changed, people drifted away, and only ruins were left behind. Make sure you
Always amazing video by Told Stone. Make sure you go subscribe to them. This kind of, It unearths the reasonings of like while the Middle Ages become the Dark Ages, which it's almost like a taboo thing to say nowadays, the Dark Ages, because there is a lot of history within it. But in terms of like the post-Roman world, it did become dark. Like a lot of these cities kind of like made people, they forced migration. It forced, change, whether it be we got to go to the sea now because the inland routes aren't trade friendly, or whether it be a situation where different times have allowed for different outcomes. For example, like in the Levant, or the Maghreb, or the frontier, and like Germany and so forth. There's so many factors, and the pestilence and the disease also kind of just do not help it. It exacerbates the situation even more. But it's just one of those things. Like it happens. It's like there's ebbs and flows to empires, and that kind of like trickles and ripples out to the places where people live, cities. Um, I wonder how many Roman cities still have people in it today. And I wonder how many Roman cities have nobody in it today. And when I say nobody, like less than 100 people. If there's some hermits or there's some people that live there because it's abandoned and they feel like that's a reason to live there. I don't mean that. I mean like a functional society, part of like an administrative like branch of the city exists, etc. Something like that. Um, I wonder. I wonder what that will look like on a percentage pie chart. But I appreciate you guys as always. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave me some video suggestions down below. Peace out and bye bye.